4, 3, 2, 1. And we're live. We're live? We're live? Yes, we're live. Kenai Nahara. Welcome back to a beautiful shir of Talmud by yours truly. You can, if you don't know my name, you can see it in the title as well. Okay? If this is your first time, I demand that you immediately hit subscribe and the bell so that you get notified every time we do the shir. So that this shouldn't be the first and last time that you're here. You should be here every day. Just like all of the students around the table that you can't see because they're embarrassed of the camera, except this guy who just walks right by. Kenai Nahara. And everyone else is here every day. So you should also be here every day. Okay? Good. Now, we are in middle of a discussion on the rules of the rabbis establishing the Jewish month based on lunar sighting. Okay? If you ever saw a bunch of Jews walking around at night and staring at the moon, it could just be they're trying to do this ritual. Right? You ever see that? Jews looking at the moon? You ever tried that? Does it feel a little spiritual that you get to look at the moon? Yeah? Good. Anyways, but no, as a matter of fact, we do not do this today anymore. As we explained in last class, if you didn't hear in last class, you should definitely go back and listen to it. We don't do this ritual anymore. However, the concept is important so that we know the basis of the Jewish calendar, the basis of how Jewish dates are set up completely. And we're not talking about a Jewish date with a girl, because that has nothing to do with this. But if you know the Jewish dates, then it might help you get a date with a Jewish girl. You'll be like, hey, I know that it's Rosh Chodesh Adar, Rosh Chodesh, it's Beis Nisan. Shmuel's looking at me like, what's this guy doing talking about in a Gemara class about getting Jewish girls? Well, I'm hoping that I'm talking to Jewish men. If you're not Jewish, don't go after the Jewish girls, because us rabbis want all the Jewish girls to marry Jewish guys, and that's it. And that's actually a biblical commandment. Jews are biblically required to marry Jewish people. Okay? So if you want to marry a Jewish girl, well, if you're Jewish, then good for you. And if you're not Jewish, I'm sorry, we have to cut a little piece off before you can do that. And then we'll make you Jewish. We'll chop a little, and then we can speak about it. Yeah.
Word to the wise. Ouch.
Huh?
Word to the wise. Ouch.
Trust me, the women are very happy about this. They're like, yeah, we get to chop that guy up. Huh?
I don't think the men are so
The men are not as happy about this rule. But anyways. Okay, back to what we're saying. We are in the middle of discussing the details of this Mishnah. This Mishnah basically told us how the rabbis, even if they themselves saw the moon, they still need to examine witnesses that saw the moon. Now, why do they have to examine witnesses if they themselves were the witnesses?
God says so.
Huh?
God said.
So, not necessarily did God say so, and that's actually what the Gemara is going to discuss. Why exactly do the rabbis have to, why do they have to examine witnesses if they themselves saw the moon? Okay, that's really where we're going to be beginning today, and that's the topic that we're going to be beginning today, is exactly that concept. Okay? We are holding by the two dots. Okay, if you look in the two dots, it's like a colon in the Gemara. For those of you who are actually smart enough or knowledgeable enough to learn from the actual Gemara, we are in Masechet Rosh Hashanah, right? Tractate Rosh Hashanah, page 25b. Now, at the bottom of 25b, you will have, towards the bottom, you'll see two dots. It's like a colon and then another colon. Okay? Huh?
What's the first word?
What's the first word? The first word is Ra'u Bezdin. Okay? Now, what happens in the Gemara when you see a colon, a couple words, and then another colon? What does that actually mean? Does anybody know what that means? It usually is a quote from the Mishnah. Why are we quoting the Mishnah? because the entire Talmud is trying to analyze the meaning of the Mishnah. Very often we analyze the first few sentences and then we quote another sentence to tell you that we're moving on to the next sentence. And it's a very important concept in the Gemara. When you see a colon, a couple words in a colon, that is another way of saying quote, unquote. Okay? There are a few exceptions to this rule, but not many. Usually when you see two dots, a couple words, and then two dots, that's usually what it means. Okay? Now, we are continuing on from the two dots. It says, Ra'u Bezdin, if the Bezdin themselves saw it, Yamdu Shnayim, two people should stand up and then testify before them, which means the Bezdin actually saw the new moon. Even though the Bezdin saw the new moon, we say that we are required, the Bezdin are required to examine witnesses that saw the moon. Now, remember, they're examining witnesses who's saying they saw something that they themselves saw too. Now, this is what the Gemara is going to try to analyze and figure out what exactly is the point of this. Now, unfortunately, right next to the room that I'm teaching, there's this kitchen where people like making coffees, and sometimes when they make coffees, they also talk. So, hello, and it's disturbing the class. Mr. Dirtball. Yes. Okay? Please stop talking in the kitchen. Thank you. Sheesh. You ever see men like hanging around in the kitchen? Oh, what a joke. Yes, in this yeshiva, that's where they hang out. There's a coffee, there's a tea, and that's where they hang out. Unfortunately, right next to my ear. All right? Let's continue with what we're saying. Remember, the Beth Din actually saw the new moon themselves. They still have to interview witnesses who say they saw the new moon. Okay? Now, the Gemara is going to ask a question. Ve'amai, and why is this so? Why do they need to interview witnesses when they themselves are the witnesses? Loi tehei shmiya gedolim re'iyah. Hearing should not be greater than seeing. If you see an action, you see something going on, or you heard that something went on, which one should you believe more? What you see, right? Right? Normally they say seeing is believing. If I hear something, I don't necessarily believe it. Right? Here we're saying that the rabbis saw with their own eyes, they saw the new moon, yet they need to listen to witnesses to hear those witnesses' reports. What's more likely to be true? A report from witnesses or what I saw myself?
Depends who you are.
Huh?
Depends who you are.
Wrong. Because you didn't hear the question properly. The question properly is, if you yourself saw something and then some other people tell you something else, who are you going to believe?
Myself.
Obviously, you're going to believe yourself. You saw it. No witnesses, 1 million witnesses in the world, no amount of witnesses in the entire world are able to convince you that you didn't see what you see. Here, even though the rabbis saw it, we're requiring them to have witnesses, right? Which basically means hearing is greater than seeing, which doesn't make any sense. And of course, the Torah is meant to make sense at least, right? There you go. So that's the Gemara's question. Amai. I put amai as a keyword. Amai is always the introduction to a question. The word amai is introducing a question and saying, why is this so? Why is this?
The first one that asks is the phrase, when you see amai, so it's like why, and then is the phrase that follows that usually the formulation of the question?
Usually, not always. Sometimes it just says amai and it's expecting you to figure out what the question is. Here it actually lays out the question. It tells you this is the question. All right? Good. Good. Anyways, where are we? Oh, so it's a question. Why are we making hearing sound greater than seeing? Okay? Rabbi Zayda says, Kegoin shera'uhu balayla, for example, if the rabbi saw the moon at night. Now, why is it going to make a difference if the rabbi saw the moon in the day or if they saw it at night? Who remembers from yesterday's class something that would be relevant to this conversation? Huh?
They saw it during the day, they might have been tripping.
If what?
They saw it during the day, they might have been tripping.
Why are they tripping? You never saw the moon during the day?
Not a brand new moon, no.
Huh?
Not a brand new moon.
You never saw the moon in the day?
Brand new moon, no.
Yeah, you ever saw a brand new moon?
Yeah.
You can see new moon.
Huh?
It's not bright enough.
You can see the moon in the day. Yes, you absolutely, unequivocally could see the moon in the day. So basically, what he's saying here, Rabbi Zay is saying is, if the rabbis saw the moon in the day, everything would be fine. They wouldn't have to listen to witnesses, right? But if they saw it at night, then they would need to listen to witnesses. Why is it different if they saw it at night or if they saw it at day? Why?
Because you can't say it at night.
Huh?
They're not more able to declare it at night.
Oh, so as we learned yesterday, the declaration had to be during the day. Since the declaration has to be during the day, therefore there has to be some type of not a, what do we call it? Not a hearing, what do we call it? Deliberations. There needs to be some form of deliberations in the day in order to determine what's going on. Right? There must be. And by the way, I just want to remind you guys that are online that if you have a question on what I'm saying, all you have to do is type it into the comments of whatever platform you are on. I know we are on multiple platforms, but our friend David over here has this machine here that's called a computer, okay? And this computer somehow is able to take all the comments of all the platforms and put it right in front of my face so that if you have an important question, I could answer that question right here, right now, in the class, live. Okay? All you have to do is put it in the comments, and that's that. Okay? Good. As long as we let people know, that's good. Now, essentially, according to that opinion, if the rabbis see it in the day, then that is the deliberations. They're deliberating. Hey, look, we see it, and now we can say Mekudesh, Mekudesh. However, what happens if the Beis Din saw it at night? Could they make the deliberations at night? No. We said yesterday deliberations must be during the day. That is a biblical rule. We explained it yesterday. Deliberations of the Beth Din must be during the day. That's it, the only option. Now, what happens if they saw it at night and now comes during the day, they need to deliberate? How are they going to deliberate? What are they going to do? What are they going to do? They're going to say, we saw it last night? Well, that's already testimony, right? Now, testimony has to be done in front of a Beis Din, right? So if you want to know where legal mumbo jumbo comes from, the Talmud. Okay? Since since it needs to be during the day, and since they are now going to have to report to themselves that they saw it last night, now that's already considered a testimony, and testimony by biblical law, testimony has to be 2 witnesses speaking to 3 members of the judge panel. A 3 judge panel situation. Right? Yeah? Good. That's the rule. So therefore, what we said is that if the Beis Din saw it, right, meaning the rabbis themselves saw the moon, they nevertheless have to take 2 of those rabbis and make these 2 rabbis into witnesses, and those 2 witnesses have to report what they saw, even though everybody saw it, but they have to report it to the rabbis that are on the Beis Din, right? And there has to be at least 3 of those rabbis, right? Good.
Get 2 people. What are the 2 people that they're going to get testified? You said, right, you have 3 people that saw it.
Yeah.
So 2 people, one person sits down as the Beis Din,
Yeah.
and they'll go grab 2 other people to be the Beis Din.
So right now, this case is very interesting, and a lot of guys got confused with it. Okay? I had people with trouble. What we're saying over here, essentially, the Mishnah has 2 cases. There's one case where there's only 3 rabbis that saw it. This is the case prior. The case prior, we said the Beis Din saw it. A Beis Din, how many members are there in a Beth Din?
3 or more. 3 or more.
Oh, so here we have a Talmudic genius. Okay? He answered the question on the dot. In order to have a Beth Din, you have to have 3 or more members. Now, the Mishnah did not tell us how many members are in that particular Beis Din, but we did say that you need to have 2 of the members testify as witnesses, right? Now, obviously, that means there has to be at least 3 members left to testify to. In other words, there must be, in that Beis Din that we're talking about, there must be at least 3 members of the Beth Din. Okay? Good. Fine? Continue? Good. Good. So that's that. Now we're going to go on to the next thing in the Mishnah. The next thing in the Mishnah, it says, Ra'u Shloisha. What happens if 3 judges saw? The Heina Beis Din. 3 members, meaning there's not 5 members at a Beis Din, there's only 3 members at a Beis Din, and they are the only people that saw the moon. What it says is Yamdu Shnayim, 2 out of these 3 will stand up and become the witnesses, V'yeshivu Chavreim, and they're going to have to appoint 2 more members to the Beis Din, because, again, there's only 3. We took 2 away to make them witnesses. We only have 1 left. Now that we have 1 left, we need to appoint another 2 to the Beis Din, and then the 2 previous members of the Beis Din that stood up to testify, they're going to testify. They're going to testify in front of this Beis Din, 2 of which did not see the moon, and one of which did see the moon. Okay? Now, if we said before that if there was a 5-member of Beis Din, 2 people have to stand up and report it to the 3, there must be a difference in what we just said here. There's got to be a difference. What is the difference between what we just said here and the previous case? Again, the previous case was a 5-member Beis Din. We say 2 stand up and report to the 3. Here we're also saying 2 stand up. Now there's only 1 left, so we now appoint another 2. That seems obvious that we could point another 2. There's no rule against appointing somebody to the Beit Din. If that's the case, why on earth did the Mishnah say what it said? No, but we learned that from the last case. Since we learned that from the last case, that cannot be what the Mishnah is trying to teach us.
The last case was in the morning.
What morning? Okay, so we're going to deal with that. Okay? We're going to deal with that possibility. Okay, listen up. I want to remind everybody, those are in the live class and those are in the, what do you call the people online? The line class, right? There's the live and the line class. Even though we're live online, but fine. Everybody needs to know that in the Mishnah was extremely particular on every single word it used. Okay? The Mishnah never said a word that was not significant to a halachic conclusion. That's it. If the Mishnah said it, there's somewhat of a halachic conclusion that comes out of it. Make sense? Good. Now, in this particular case, everything that this new case told us seems to be repetitive because the previous case taught us those very rules. Now the Gemara is going to try to analyze what is the new rule the Mishnah is trying to teach us, because the Gemara is assuming there is a new rule that the Mishnah is trying to teach us, because the Mishnah would not be repetitive. Every word was precise. Okay? In Judaism, at least the rabbis, they're meant to say the least amount of words possible. I'm terribly sorry. I don't follow this tradition very well. But that's really what it says. It says rabbis are supposed to say in the shortest way possible, but it should be precise. Meaning use the least amount of words, but in the most precise way. Okay? But everything is meant to teach you a lesson. And the very fact that the Mishnah said a case that seems repetitive means the Gemara needs to analyze what is it adding. And that's exactly what we're about to do in this Gemara, to try to figure out what did the Mishnah add by this seemingly repetitive case. Make sense? Any questions? Good, you have a question. Yitzchak.
What does bifnei mean exactly?
In front of.
In front of?
Yeah.
Same as lifnei?
Lifnei, bifnei, yeah. What would be, yeah, there could be a different usages, lifnei and bifnei. It depends when. Sometimes they can be interchangeable. I'm not one of these Hebrew language gurus, so I can't really tell you offhand. Maybe I need to look it up. What is actually the exact difference between lifnei and bifnei? All right? Good. Let's continue. So let's analyze what is adding to what is this case adding? Remember, this case is there's only 3 people that saw it. These 3 people are the Beth Din, and now we have a problem because if we take 2 away, we only have 1 left, and if we only have 1 left, we now need to put 2 more to do that, right? Meaning we had to add 2 people to the Beis Din because they just lost 2 of their members. Okay? Good. Amai, says the Gemara, why? Why is this? Hachanami. Here too, we have the thing that the rabbis that saw it shouldn't be any different, shouldn't be less valuable than the rabbis that heard it. Right? Meaning, hearing is less accurate. Hearing is less accurate than seeing. So we're taking rabbis that saw it, we're kicking them off the Beis Din, and now we're replacing them with we're replacing them with rabbis that didn't see it. So how does that make sense?
What is the name of?
Nema, hachanami, here to, nema means say, here to say. Amai, hachanami loite, so here too, meaning it's the same question as before. Before we asked the question, why are we trusting hearing more than seeing? What did we answer? Does anybody remember the answer? What's the answer that we had? Huh? What's the answer?
Don't trust them more.
We said we don't trust hearing more than seeing, but we have to have a deliberation. That's what we said. We have to have a deliberation. Now there's one problem here. Why can't we say we need a deliberation? Because they saw it at night. Exactly! Sorry, I just broke the mic or whatever it is here, but the last case came to prove you that if you saw it at night, now you need to do a deliberation in the day, and that's why you had to have witnesses stand up and testify. Right? Now, if the last case taught us that rule, this case can't be teaching us that rule. Why? Because the Mishnah doesn't teach you the same rule twice. So now, basically, the Gemara is saying it should be the same thing. So the Gemara answers the same thing, and he says, where are we? V'chi tema, and it says, if you're going to say, Hani hochanami here too, if you're going to say here it's the same situation that they saw it by night, and we're talking about that in the day, they now need to do a deliberation, hainu hach. This is this. This means they're the exact same case. They're exact same situation. Now I want to show you here, we have a few important keywords in the Gemara that I want to show you. Number one, we have v'chi tema. V'chi tema is if you're going to say. Okay, v'chi tema is a very common set of keywords, and I want you to learn exactly what v'chi tema means. Okay, anybody over there following, you should follow in the Talmudic, in the Aramaic, and you'll learn some very important keywords. V'chi tema means if you're going to say. It actually tells you that you might want to answer as follows, but we're telling you in advance that we're going to reject it. Yeah? Huh? Stop reading my computer here, please. Okay? Whatever's going on there between these dirtball. Whatever's going on between him and everyone else there, that's their problem, not mine. Okay? Yeah. Yes, somebody put on one of the comments, they wrote free Palestine. And a couple of Jews are like, it's free? I'm coming to get it. That's it. Anyways, good. And I have a little joke every once in a while. Okay? Good. Anyways, this guy's still laughing at me. Can't handle it. This is okay. Okay, so v'chi tema is if you're going to say, it's basically telling you that we're going to tell you a question and we're going to tell you a possible answer, but we're going to reject that answer. And because it's saying, if you're going to say this, I'm going to tell you that. Meaning, I'm telling you in advance that it's not the right answer. Correct. Exactly. I'm telling you in advance, if you're going to say, so v'chi tema, if you're going to say hochanami here too, for example, that they saw it by night, then it's the same rule as before. So now the Gemara says we need to come up with something unique, something unique and different than what we learned before.
So are we taking like Rabbi Zera, because there's nothing after it, we're saying that what he was saying is true, that is for sure what the first thing is saying?
Well, first of all, Rabbi Zera said a statement, and if there's no one that rejects the statement, then we assume it's true. Okay? I want to tell you a general rule in Talmud. The general rule in Talmud that any rabbi that is named in the Talmud, whether it's the Mishnah or whether it's somewhere else, any rabbi mentioned in the Talmud, they have an ultimate authority. They are assumed to be correct until proven otherwise. Now, there are certain situations where we do prove them wrong in certain situations, right? I wouldn't even say proven wrong, but we show that there's some inaccuracy in what they said, okay? We do have that. However, if a rabbi in the Talmud says something and the Talmud doesn't reject it, then that's the law, okay? If a rabbi says something, you need another rabbi to basically reject why. If there's no other rabbi to reject that rabbi, then that's that. In those days, by the way, It wasn't like today. Today we give rabbinic ordination. I give a rabbinic ordination over here in this yeshiva. You come, you learn for a year, you learn a couple books, and then we give you a paper that says you're a rabbi. Shkoyach. In those days, rabbinic ordination was much harder. You pretty much had to know everything. You had to know everything in Judaism. If you didn't know everything in Judaism, you're not going to be a rabbi. Okay? You know why they stopped that? They realized there would be no rabbis. They're too complicated. In those days, they were very learned. By the way, let's just be fair. In those days, there was also less literature. Okay? Over the years, there was more and more literature printed. So rabbis had to learn more and more and more and more and more. And the rabbi's like, listen, I can't handle this. And that was that. Yeah.
I was telling my cousin about this, and I was telling him that people here do smicha after a year, and he's like, and he got confused because he was saying that in Israel, it's like apparently incredibly difficult to become a rabbi.
So first of all, there are different ordination programs. The official Israeli rabbinut program is it could take 2 to 4 years to do it, and it's a lot of learning, a lot more than what we learn in our rabbinic ordination program. Our rabbinic ordination program, it's a program. It is recognized around the world by many communities, and that's that. You cannot become an official rabbi. If it's a governmental position, you can't become a rabbi with the smicha that we have. Yeah? Good. Let's continue. Yeah? We're getting... Yeah.
Isn't Rabbi Zera's answer kind of like incomplete?
Why is it incomplete? It's perfect.
What would happen if we, because they're saying like, okay.
He's addressing that this situation must be at night, which means that if it was during the day, they wouldn't need the witnesses.
So that means that if a Beis Din saw it during the day, they could just simcha kodesh?
No, according to Rabbi Zera's message, if the Beis Din saw it during the day, they don't need witnesses because they can have the deliberation on what they're seeing. They can deliberate. Hey, is that the moon or isn't that the moon? Yes, it is the moon. Right. The method of having witnesses is only when they cannot make a deliberation when they see the moon. Because if they see it at night, they can't make the deliberation till the day. But when they make the deliberation, what are they making the deliberation based on what they saw at night? Therefore, it needs a formality of witnesses and a judge. Whereas if the judges are staring at the moon during the day, they can deliberate on the actual site, and that deliberation is okay because it's happening during the day.
And so even if the Beis Din saw the moon at night, then they become witnesses.
So now they're witnesses, correct. And again, because they cannot deliberate till the day, as we said yesterday. Right? Good. Let's continue.
Wait,
So,
are
yeah.
you not allowed to simcha kodesh during the day, or you're not allowed to do any of the process during the night?
We said that. That's what we learned yesterday. Every single part of the process has to be done during the day. Right? The process of the deliberation, the process of actually making the proclamation that it is Rosh Chodesh, all has to be done during the day. That's what we learned already yesterday. Okay? Good. Now we're going to go, we're going to go and try to understand what this new case is about. Remember, the new case is 3 people saw the moon and they are the Beis Din. We say we have to take 2 to make witnesses, and then we have to add 2 more to the Beis Din. Now, the question is, all of the practical halachic implications of that rule seem to be the same as the last rule. So now the Gemara is going to say a very important keyword again called itztrich. Itztrich. You know what itztrich means? It's needed. It's needed means that it is required. The second case is required. Why is the second case required? We're about to tell you. So whenever you see the word itztrich is usually coming as an answer to a question. Right? The question is, it seems unnecessary. It seems to be redundant. Right? There seems to be an unnecessary rule or an unnecessary statement. And the way to justify the unnecessary statement, we use the word itztrich, which means it is needed. It is in fact necessary. Okay? So we say itzrich. We do need this. Why do we need this? Itzrich lei. We're trying to teach you what the Mishnah says later, that a single person is not believed enough to establish Rosh Chodesh. One person is not believed to establish Rosh Chodesh. You need 3 people. Now, we told you already yesterday that you need a Beis Din. You need a Beis Din, and then what's the minimum Beis Din? 3. So why on earth would I even think that one person could rule on the month? Why would I even think that?
Because 3 people saw it.
Huh?
You would think think that maybe because all three of them saw it.
Doesn't make a difference. If three of them saw it, why can't two of them be the witness, one of them be the judge? Today in the Western world, they have one judge. A horrible justice system, but we won't get into the horrid justice system that the Western world has today. But they have one judge. So why, again, if we tell you that according to Torah you have to have three judges, right? Why would you think that this is an exception? Why would you think that you only require one judge?
Because they're all three judges. All three of them.
Who cares? At the end of the day, two of them became witnesses. Let one of them be the judge. Why do we need more than one judge?
No, so you might think that since all three of them saw it at the same time, because all three of them were in the same court case, you might think that that's enough. Like those three together are enough.
Yeah, but we just told you in the last case that two of them need to split. We told you already. We told you already last case that two of them need to split off. Right. The only question is that the Gemara is saying that if the Mishnah didn't say what it said, you might have thought that even if there's only three rabbis, two of them split off and then one of them judges. Right? Now, why would we think that one judges suffice? Why would we think that?
Because you also might, if it didn't happen, you might think that you can be both a judge and a witness.
What does that mean?
I mean, the fact that it clarifies people like a SWAT team,
right?
You can infer from that you can't be both a witness and on the basis.
Again, we already concluded that if judges saw the moon, we still need to separate two judges, and those two judges need to be the witness. We already said that in the last case, right? We taught that already. So that can't be what we're trying to learn over here. Okay? Now, the Gemara says as follows. It's now going to explain why we may have thought that in this case, judges are allowed. Okay? That's what we're trying. The Gemara is trying to bring a precedent, that there is a precedent in Jewish law to have one judge. It's, again, usually we have three judges, but there is a precedent in Jewish law to have one judge. And since there's a precedent to have one judge, we may have thought that establishing the new month could also fit into that precedent, and therefore the Mishnah had to tell us, no, that is not fit into that precedent, and we actually need three judges like most cases. Now, the Gemara is about to give us a precedent where we, in fact, allow one judge to adjudicate a case. Normally we need three. There is a precedent. Let's learn the precedent. That's what we're going to learn. Okay? We want to teach you that when it comes to the moon, one person is not believed for himself. Why? So Gemara is going to say, the sal kadai techamino is another key word. It may arise in our mind, which means we may have thought, it's not in there, blown up? Chutzpah, it should have been. Right? Since we taught somewhere else, we taught regarding a different situation. It says, Dinei mamnes b'shloisha. Whenever you have monetary civil case, you must have three rabbis adjudicate the case. However, if he is a super genius expert, and everybody accepts this person became an accepted expert that everybody's like, wow, this expert is trusted. If they have a mumche l'rabim, which means an expert that's accepted by the public accepts his expertise, dan afilu b'yochid, then he could actually judge by himself, which means, again, normally in a monetary case, and by the way, this rule still applies till today, in a monetary case, you have to have three people adjudicate. Okay? Now, I'm not talking about if there is a consensus. It's very important to understand that if two people agree to allow one person adjudicate to be what's called a mediator or an arbitrator, that is 100% allowed. But because the two people are deciding. Once the two people are agreeing, so two people agree to adjudicate their monetary case by one person, that's no problem. We're talking about a situation where the two people don't agree who should adjudicate their case. Then there are scenarios, at least biblically, there are scenarios where a Beis Din can force people to adjudicate the case by them. Just like in today, the secular courts, if two people are arguing, if they cannot agree on an arbitrator or a mediator, then they bring it to the court, and the court says, you have to come, meaning this is the judge for your case, and that's it. You don't have a choice. You have to go with that judge. You don't have a choice, right? Now, in Judaism, at least at one point when the rabbis had power, the Beth Din had power, they could force somebody to adjudicate the case by them, which means two people are arguing. This guy says he owes me $1,000. The other guy says, no, I don't owe you $1,000. There, three rabbis can force this guy to come to them and to adjudicate the case by them. Okay? But you must have three rabbis unless there is a super expert that is accepted by everyone. If there's a super expert that's accepted by everyone, then that super expert could also force people to come and adjudicate the case by them. Okay, that is the rule regarding monetary cases. Now, if you remember yesterday or the day before, I don't remember when we learned it, but we learned that there is somewhat of a connection between monetary cases and adjudicating whether the new month should exist or not, right? Now, you might have thought, just like by a monetary case, one super expert can be accepted, you might think the same thing applies here. Comes the Gemara and says, no, when it comes to blessing the new month, you must have three rabbis. I don't care if they're experts, they're not experts. Well, they do have to be experts, but they don't have to be like a super expert that everybody accepts. Okay? So that's what it comes to teach you. Yeah? So you might have thought that just like a monetary case, one person could judge a monetary case. Hachanami here too. Nikacha b'yechidi. Here too, maybe we should say that this one guy that's left. Remember, we said that there's three members of the Beis Din. Two of them step aside and they become the witnesses. So let's say that this one guy is now going to be the judge. Comes the Gemara and says no. The Mishnah says no. When it comes to establishing the new month, you absolutely, unequivocally must have minimum of three rabbis to adjudicate on the new month. That's it. That's what it teaches. Now the Gemara asks another question. Why don't we say Amon say hachanami here too? Why don't we allow one rabbi to adjudicate a month? Why can't one rabbi adjudicate whether or not to make the month or not? Why do we need three rabbis? Yeah, I'm asking you. Oh, you think I'm joking? I'm just an actor. Huh? Why do we need three members? By the way, I want to tell you that anybody over there online could also contribute to this conversation by putting your comment. A comment, we actually have multiple platforms here, but this computer takes all the comments from all the platforms and puts them into one place. If you make a comment over here, then we, in fact, will see your comment, and if it's something relevant, and if you say Free Palestine or something like that, like some of these guys, right, I'm not going to deal with it, okay? Except the joke that the other dude, somebody said Free Palestine, and the other Jews came up and said, I'll take it, no problem. Free? No, I'll take it. Yeah, that's really why I mentioned it, but no charge. Good. But yes, you could definitely ask questions online by putting it in the comments. And let's continue. So I asked, why three members? Why do you need three rabbis to adjudicate a case?
Be free of prejudice or any other.
Free of prejudice, okay, but that just because of a reasoning doesn't necessarily mean that's why we want to do it. We need to have how do we establish Torah rules? Yeah?
Oh, I was going to say why maybe there's three rabbis.
Huh?
I was going to answer why there's three rabbis.
Yeah, why does three rabbis?
Because it affects the entire nation as opposed to just the litigants and the monetary.
Okay, so you are essentially making a logical argument. However, logical arguments don't really hold in the Talmud. You think I'm crazy right now? You're like, isn't the Talmud a logical argument? No. The Talmud, as I've explained in the past, is not a logical argument on its own. It's not just theorizing. There's the Torah, and we need to make logical arguments on what the Torah means. The Torah means we have the books of Moses, and we need to make logical arguments on how to best interpret the books of Moses. Right? That's what we are dealing with. And the logic in the Talmud is how to properly interpret the books of Moses. That's the logic in the Talmud. Okay? And so the simple answer should always be, if there is a rule that three members are required, right, then that means by definition, there's got to be a source in the Torah that requires three rabbis. And that's what the Gemara is going to deal with. We're going to try to go all the way back to the Torah itself to try to show you why three rabbis are required. Somebody asked over here, how about five rabbis? Five rabbis, as I said, we could have five rabbis. Yet three is the minimum. Three is the minimum. We could have even more. Thank you to Mr. What is it, guys, called? Winged Bull. A winged bull. from all the way from the platform called Kick. Okay? We have two platforms. One's called Kick and one's called Twitch. I say if you get somebody gives you a kick, then you get a Twitch. That's it. Is that funny? It wasn't funny? It's not funny. Then why are you laughing? If it's not funny, why are you laughing? Anyways, yeah, what?
Doesn't it have to be an odd amount?
Does what?
Doesn't it?
Yes, it does have to be correct. It does have to be an odd amount. A Beis Din has to be an odd amount. It could be 3, 5, 7, etc. Okay, let's continue to the Gemara. The Gemara is going to bring a biblical source to tell you that you must have 3 people regarding the deliberations of when the Jewish month starts. Okay? So the Gemara says as follows: there is no greater super genius in the Jewish nation greater than Moses himself. Moses himself was the greatest super genius of the Jewish nation. The whole nation accepted Moses, right? And Moses was the greatest super genius, yet, even though Moses was a super genius, the Ka'amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God tells Moses in the Torah regarding the new month, it says, Ad de'ika Arin ba'adoch. He says, you need to have Aaron together with you. When you adjudicate the new month, you have to have Aaron with you. That's only 2.
God.
Oh, God's the third. So there's Moses is speaking to God, and God tells him that he needs to bring Aaron, which means there needs to be 3 adjudicating the new month. And if Moses was not good enough to adjudicate a new month by himself, that proves that no rabbi in the history is good enough to adjudicate the new moon by itself. And here we're going to actually quote the pasuk itself, the verse itself. I'm going to tell you where it's actually from. It is in Shemois Yud Beis, the first 2 verses, which is Exodus, the 12th chapter of Exodus. The first 2 verses actually says as follows: Vayomer Hashem el Moshe, God tells Moses, ve'el Aaron, and to Aaron, be'eretz Mitzrayim, in the land of Egypt, lemor. He says as follows: Hachodesh hazeh lochem, this month should be for you, right? And when he says this month, he was actually showing Moses and Aaron the new moon. He's saying, now you see the new moon? That's what makes a new month, right? And once, it's because Moses had to be with Aaron, and then there was God talking in the conversation, that shows that they were, all 3 of them were seeing the new moon, and based on their sight, that's how they determined that it was a new month. Right? Good. So that's the end of that. So now we know why there needs to be 3 people to determine when a new month is. Now the question is, should we learn the next question in the Gemara, or should we leave that for tomorrow? I think we should. No, I think we have a little bit more time. We are going to go just the last conversation.
Is there a test today?
Huh? No. It's a little bit reorganized because of the term when it started. Okay, I'll explain that as soon as we're done here, because it's not really relevant to our dear friends that are watching online. I actually have more than 3 people now watching. Can I know how? Okay, Baruch Hashem. The other time I had 3 people. I feel like I have more people. Right now I have more people online than in the class. Mwah! Thank you. Yeah. Anyways, where are we? Good. So the Gemara asks one last question. Are you trying to suggest that a witness could become a judge? Yeah. Again, there is a precedence that the Gemara is about to bring that says that a witness cannot be a judge. Okay? Leima masnisin deloik Rabbi Akiva suggests that our Mishnah seems to be arguing with Rabbi Akiva himself. Why? The Tanya, as it's taught in a brisa, Sanhedrin shelo echad sheharages hanefesh. Rabbi Akiva says that if there is a Beth Din and they saw somebody kill, miksasam nasu edim, miksasam nasu dayanim, some of them can become witnesses, and some of them can become the judges. Dividi Rabbi Tarfon. This is Rabbi Tarfon's opinion. Rabbi Akiva, however, Rabbi Akiva says no. Kulam nas and edim, they can all be witnesses, but none of them can be judges. Okay. Now, there's a general rule that a person that sees something cannot be a judge, because judging, you actually have to deliberate. If you see something, there's nothing to judge. You see it, right? You can no longer be you cannot be a objective judge if you see it, right? So again, you'd think that if the judge sees somebody killing, then he should just say, okay, you're guilty. You know why? Because when you see something, there's a certain level of subjectivity. There's a certain level of emotions, there's a certain level of connectivity that you have, and therefore you could no longer objectively analyze what's going on. Okay? And therefore, Rabbi Akiva says that a witness can never become a judge. Even if you have 100 witnesses to a murder, you cannot make 97 of them witnesses and 3 of them judges. I'm sorry, any of the witnesses cannot be a judge. This is a very interesting Jewish rule, but that is the rule. A witness cannot be, if you actually saw it, you cannot be a judge. You cannot be properly subjective if you've actually seen the scenario. Okay, so the Gemara is suggesting that our Mishnah seems to reject Rabbi Akiva's opinion, and Bezrat Hashem, tomorrow...
But it says clearly in the Mishnah the opposite.
You know what, let me finish it. It's a short thing till the next Mishnah. It's very short.
You take one of the 3 people that saw it and you sit them down and take 2 other judges. So you find 3 other judges.
Well, that's the whole point. So that's what our Mishnah says, that the people that saw it can be the judge. Now, if our Mishnah says that the people that saw it to be the judge, it seems like it's agreeing with again, there's 2 opinions. One opinion says a witness could be a judge. One opinion says the witness cannot be a judge. Right? So our Gemara is trying to suggest that our Mishnah that says a witness could be a judge is rejecting Rabbi Akiva's opinion. Right? But now the Gemara is actually going to say not necessarily. Afiu tema Rabbi Akiva. Even Rabbi Akiva may believe that in this case he could. Ad kan lo yikam Rabbi Akiva hasan elo b'nei nefashos. Because Rabbi Akiva says that a witness cannot be a judge in capital crimes. Capital crimes means that if the guy is guilty, we're going to kill him. Now, if a guy is guilty of a particular sin and we're going to kill them, we need to be extra careful. And therefore, perhaps Rabbi Akiva, who doesn't allow a witness to become a judge, is only talking about capital crimes and not regular crimes. Okay?
But the logic would stay the same though.
Again, the logic would stay the same, but who says that it's... When we say that a witness cannot become a judge, who says that it's the worst thing in the world? Right? Now, in an extreme case where that judge is actually going to inflict a capital punishment on somebody, we want to be extra careful. We want to be extra strict. So it could be that with seeing of the month, we don't need to be so strict. Right? Correct. It's a chumrah, meaning we're stricter when it comes to capital punishment to require a higher standard, but perhaps regarding the Jewish month, we don't have such a high standard. So that's what the Gemara is suggesting, that perhaps when it comes to seeing the moon, we have a lower standard than capital punishment. And the Gemara says that perhaps when it comes to a capital crime, especially when if somebody sees somebody killing, right, there's a lot of trauma. Okay, you ever saw somebody get killed? No. I never saw somebody get killed. I've actually saw somebody dead on the floor once. Okay, I was actually in a particular place, and there was a very, I don't know what do you want to call it, there was an individual who decided that it was a smart move to bring a knife to a gunfight. Okay, no, it was serious. Right here in Israel, there was a terrorist. He came and he tried to stab a Jew. He tried to kill him with a knife, and the Jew happened to have a gun on him, right? And the gun won, let me just say. The guy with the knife didn't survive very long. I say if you're going to bring a knife to a gunfight, it's not very healthy. All right? You won't live very long doing that. Okay? No, but I saw the guy get killed. Now I saw the guy dead on the floor. I didn't actually see him get killed. I came like a couple minutes later. But the reason why I'm saying this is that even seeing the guy dead on the floor was extremely traumatic. To walk down the street and be like, here's a dead guy lying on the street, it's traumatic. Now, I don't know about you soldiers, anybody that was a soldier in the army, maybe a post-traumatic stress disorder, you may have seen dead bodies. I'm telling you that I saw one time, in my whole life, I saw one guy that just got killed, and I saw him 5 minutes after he got killed, and I'm telling you, there's stress. And the same thing, if a rabbi witnesses somebody killing, the stress of the matter might make him really angry and might want him to avenge the blood that he saw, and therefore he's not going to be objective to listen to the whole story. He might try to inflict punishment on the guy even if he wasn't completely guilty. And that's why, perhaps because of that, we're extra strict, whereas the moon, there's no stress. You saw the moon. Everybody can see the moon every day. So since there's no stress, there's no factor of anger, there's no nothing. So in that case, perhaps, we did not confirm, we're just saying perhaps it's different. Again, very often the Gemara does this. We're not confirming or denying. The Gemara is not confirming that there's a difference. We're just saying that there's no evidence that this Mishnah is rejecting Rabbi Akiva's opinion. We said maybe our Mishnah is rejecting Rabbi Akiva's opinion, and the Gemara says no, not necessarily. The Gemara didn't finish the discussion here. Now, why didn't the Gemara? Perhaps it's not the case. It's not the proper place for it. Okay, the proper place for the discussion on capital punishment is probably in Sanhedrin, in a different tractate. So this one, our Gemara, only thing that our Gemara wants to do is figure out whether there's an argument between Rabbi Akiva and our Mishnah. And the Gemara says there's no evidence that there's an argument between Rabbi Akiva and our Mishnah, and that's the Gemara, the way the Gemara ends up. Okay? Make sense? Good. And that's going to complete the Talmudic side of our class. As everybody knows, if you're new online, you should thank you for coming. I'm happy you're here. But after we finish studying the class, we give people a chance to ask a question. You can ask a question on topic. You can ask a question off topic. Anything you want to ask a rabbi, you can go. And by the way, this is a good chance for the students over here live to ask any question that you want, usually about 10, 15 minutes. If anybody online wants to ask a question, you feel free, just put it in the comments, okay? If you put a question in the comments, in Facebook, in YouTube, in Kick, in Twitch, we will see it on our screen, and if it's something relevant, we will definitely deal with it, etc. Our first question comes from our dear student Yitzchak. What's your question? Go ahead.
So I learned over the summer from my brothers that Rashi sometimes continues, like the phrase that he's Rashiing on, he continues the phrase, like as one sentence. Sometimes
Correct.
it's different.
Correct.
Other times it's one sentence. Are there other I don't know,
Well,
quirks of Rashi that he does
so
that?
there-
Like, how
there's-
do you know?
It is actually very common that Rashi does what you just said, yeah? Which means that very often Rashi's a commentator on the Gemara. So very often, let's say the Gemara very often will talk in very short language, and sometimes it's a little confusing. Very often Rashi will quote 3 words and then kind of finish the Gemara sentence in order to help you understand what's going on. It's actually very, very common in Rashi. Not every Rashi does that, but many Rashis do. I would say on every single page there's probably 1 or 2 Rashis that do that. It's actually a very common concept. And I've actually had, I'm not sure how long you've been learning Rashi for now. You're still on the earlier level. But when guys learn Rashi, this is actually one of the questions I get all the time. They're stuck. They don't understand the Rashi. And I'm like, look, he's just finishing the sentence. All right? Good. Any other questions out there on our anybody out there watching live? I see quite a few people watching live on the various different platforms. If anybody has a question they want to ask, it could be anything, any question that you want to ask a rabbi. You have a question?
Yeah, it sounds like this is it's some of the origins of the idea of a judge recusing themselves in Western law, right? It's like in British common law, which came from Torah originally, but now has kind of changed a bit and is now like part of Western law. If the judge, it's like if you know somebody in the case, you have to recuse yourself. If you did business with somebody in the case, you have to recuse yourself. If you're financially tied or you had any part witnessing or party to or know anyone that was involved in the case.
So what's the question?
So it's like, are there similar rules? There's
So-
more about if the judge knows somebody in the case, they have to also step.
So you actually have a very good question. As I've mentioned in the past, I'm actually a certified Tohan Rabbani, which means I'm a rabbinic attorney, which means I can be like a lawyer for people in the Beth Din. In Israel, this is a serious matter. Anybody that gets divorced usually has to go to the Beis Din, and those are most of the people that actually pay me for my services. Not a great experience to be involved in divorce cases, but unfortunately, I got to pay my bills somehow. So right now, my Patreon is not really paying a lot of money. I have like 2 people there paying me $18 a month. Anyways, but to answer your question is that this is one of many rules. There are many rules which may require a judge to recuse himself. There are many rules, not just one. There are many rules. One of them is if the judge actually has somewhat of a liking to the person. Doesn't necessarily mean he knows the person. Like, oh, I went to the same doctor, right? I went to the same doctor as them. No, I never met the guy. I don't know who the guy is, right? In Western law, by the way, is very extreme, okay? You might not like me using that word, but it is. It's a very extreme concept. So very often, for the better or for the worse, they're extreme, okay? So in this case, when a judge needs to recuse himself because he once bumped into one of the litigants and had a 10-minute conversation, again, that's a little extreme. Like what? Now the judge is going to rule in his favor because I spoke to him for 10 minutes? No. Right? Whereas in Judaism, the requirement is if the judge feels like, this guy's a friend, I actually like this guy, then he has to recuse himself. But the judge gets to decide in that case. There's certain cases that are more clear. For example, if the judge is a relative, there's certain relatives. There's actually in Torah law, there's certain list of relatives that a judge must recuse himself, or else he's invalid, right? Huh?
His mother-in-law?
Mother-in-law is actually one of them. Yeah. Your mother-in-law cannot be a judge against you. Baruch Hashem. Thank God. All right. Anyone else with questions out there? Again, put it in the comments. We'll get to your questions. You have about another 36 seconds before we close the feed. Unless somebody asks a question, then we kind of get prolonged a little bit. But that's that. Anybody want to ask a question that is, yeah.
Tara Arn commented a screaming fish emoji.
A screaming fish?
Yeah.
What is that? What is a screaming fish emoji? I don't even know what that is. Huh? I don't know what a screaming fish emoji is. I see it.
It's good.
It's good that you put it there. Very nice. All right. I think we're closing down shop. Anybody else want to ask a question quickly? Let's go. Should we do a Oh, you have a question. Shmuel, yes.
What's the proper way for El, like in the Gemara?
What's the?
Saying is there like a Gemara on El? Like proper
Well, this is the Gemara that best speaks about Elul. Yeah. Yeah. All right? Mwah. All the best. Have a good day. Bye-bye.